Hello, I'm Scott DuPont with another episode of Finance Your Movie, sharing tips and strategies to help you fund your independent feature, documentary, short film, or web series. Our mission is to help empower you to get your money to tell your story. I'm excited to be here today with Jamie Rauch, and I came across Jamie recently. I attended one of his seminars because I'm always about learning and soaking up as much information as I can from everybody. And his seminar was very informative. It's called How to Raise $2 Million Plus for your film. And so Jamie, welcome to the program. And apparently you had a pretty good year. You raised a bunch of money for a couple of films you have in development.
Yeah. Thank you. It's great to be here. So, yeah, it's been a really good year. The last 3 years have been good, with some ups and downs, and as like I said in the webinar. But it's been a really good year.
Roughly, what would you say? Because these stories show proof of concept that other people are actually doing it. What's a ballpark of what you've raised just in the last 2 years for your independent films that are now in development?
Yeah. So last year, 2019, was 25 million. And then in 2020, it would be, one of them wasn't an independent film. One was like a major one, right? Like a big franchise film. So that one doesn't count in that category, but that was 50 mil. And we raised that in 4 hours just because of the concept of the nature of the franchise, right? The fourth installment of a franchise. So it was a no-brainer for a lot of investors. But on the independent side, having a film in a bidding war between two groups wanting to finance at 2 million is a good position to be in. So, so another 2 million so far this year.
Wow. Congratulations on that. And really, guys, if you're watching or listening to this, Jamie's really the person you want to talk to for the upper end of the independent budgets, because like I said, I always have full disclosure. I haven't done 3, 5, 7, 10 million, $25 million films, let alone a $50 million project. So Jamie is definitely a good guy you want to look to. So a little bit about your story. You started out as an actor, I think, in '94, and you're from a very small Canadian town. I think there's less than 5,000 people. So my question, because a lot of our audience is not necessarily in Hollywood, did you see that as an advantage, being a bigger fish in a small pond?
That's a really good question. I don't know if it was an advantage, but what it did for me was it made me dream bigger than maybe somebody who's just that's like normal, living in a big city where everything's bright and loud, and you know what I mean, like where you could, like, if you wanted to go dream, you could just go downtown, to the big city, but being in a small town stuck in front of a TV most of the time, because it was nothing to do in our town. Like my town literally had the highest, teen pregnancy rate in Canada, because everyone was just bored. There's nothing to do. And the only thing that was running the town was a brewery. So everyone was getting drunk and making babies. And so, like, there was a daycare in my high school, in a small town like that. But that being said, I didn't do any of that. I focused on the whole, like, hey, I see all this stuff on TV. I want a piece of that. And so it just made me dream. It put like a fuel on my fire, right? As being trapped in a place, like, I can't wait to leave. I can't wait to leave. I can't wait to leave. That was kind of my mentality. And then even in the midst of not being able to leave, I just was just more determined than anyone else. And if I had an idea, I just did it. And so then started my own production company in the small town at the early age of 14. And then we started getting hired out by big companies because they didn't want to send anyone there. We were already there. So they started hiring us to do like their TV stuff. So by the age of 17, I mean, we were making, for a 17-year-old in a small town, we were making thousands of dollars already.
So what was the genesis that started you to start your production company? Were you an actor trying to put yourself in front of the camera, or did you say, hey, I want to just produce things so I can control it?
Yeah, I didn't know the producing thing was like something because I didn't understand what it was, right? And when you're super young, you think the director is in charge of everything, right? That's just because he gets all he's the face essentially of the film, right? So it's very rare. So even when I'd watch the Oscars and it would be like Best Picture, and all these four guys would show up on the stage to get their Oscar, and I'm like, who are these guys? Like producers people don't know. If you ask any lay person out in the street, they're like, they don't know what producers do. You know what I mean? And even though it's their movie and it's yeah. So with that, for me, it was as an actor, watched a couple films, inspired me. I'm like, we got to do this. And so I would get into director mode, but not realizing that I was producing too. Right. And it wasn't actually until I started making like legit films, short films, like really good ones, in my early 20s is where I realized, wait a minute, I'm not the greatest director, but man, because I kept getting distracted on the business side, right, and the organizational side, and the development side of everything, and so I was always wearing, like and so the directing side for me always took a hit. Like the creative side always took a hit because I was just so focused on the business side. So then, yeah, that's when it kind of dawned on me, like, okay, this is kind of my wheelhouse, especially when other people started approaching me. Hey, can you make this for me? Can you produce this? What do you think of this? I started getting that kind of aspect to me. That's how it kind of started.
So one of the great takeaways I got from your seminar recently was you stressed the importance of researching your potential investors. And if you could share just a really quick story about that billionaire you approached, and you found out he was an auto enthusiast.
Yeah. So this is a good one. So understanding how investors think is so important, because the number one failure that I've noticed within people trying to get someone to spend money on your art is that you're so artist focused that you have no idea what you're talking about when it comes to the business side. And guys who have money have a lot of money for a reason. And so to try to get into that, you don't have to go and try to be like some billionaire in the finance kingdom or anything like that, but at least understand a little bit of what's going on in their brains or their hearts so that you can relate to them. And so with that story, we were going to approach this billionaire, and he used to have a whole film department, but he shut it down because he wanted to focus on luxury exotic cars. And so with this film that we were making, it just happened that there was an agreement with Mercedes with a concept car that no one's ever seen, and that was going to actually get displayed in this film. And of course, it's like a luxury exotic car. And so when we heard that, we're like, hey, this is great, because now we can approach the billionaire with the business opportunity, which is a big no-brainer. But to add the cherry on top, pull on his heartstrings a little bit, go, hey, how about you? Because he's been on TV. He's used to TV. So how about you, we give you a role and you can actually drive that car in the film, right? So it's like taking something that pulls on his heartstrings and something that makes business sense and just putting them together. And I call it giving an investor a reason not to say no, that's what that was.
Great story. And I think a valuable lesson to all the folks. So I know we only have a few minutes left and we don't have time to get into detail, but if you could just kind of just mention what you, talking about how investors think, what you just mentioned, what are the 3 Ps that you mentioned? If you can just rattle those off.
Yeah, so important to understand how investors think. And the first things first is profit. So number one is the first P is profit. They think like profit, and their money is always making money. And if we don't understand that into a film, if you start saying to an investor, hey, invest this much money, right away their brain goes, well, how's my money going to be making money for the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? Where's the profit? It's not even an issue of like what percentage they're making on the back end. If you tell them 20%, 25%, they won't even, I've noticed they don't say much. What they're concerned about is their money just sitting there doing nothing during the production side of things. And so profit is so important for that. That's the first thing that they think of. That's why they're wealthy, is because that's They know what they're doing with that. And then number two is their pride, right? So, like I said, this guy's pride with the car, right? There was something, or I had a guy say, "Hey, do I get one of those chairs?" Right? You know what I mean? And can I have like a one of those Arizona iced teas? I love these Arizona iced teas. I mean, I didn't think that would ever come up, but it's just like, yeah, of course you could have an Arizona iced tea. Of course you can have a chair, stuff like this. And so there's this pride part that investors have to think, hey, you want this to be cool on my bucket list, especially for a film investor who's never invested in film before, right? So finding the pride, how, whereabouts that pride is, and just pump it up so that it pumps them up, right? And then same with credit, right? What's my credit going to be? You're executive producer and whatever, right? So, and then the third P is purpose, or cause. And so what's the purpose of a purpose driven, what's the cause? Is it, especially with what's going on today, right? With, Black Lives Matter, that's a cause, right? That's a social thing. Does your movie and project actually have some sort of social change message? You know what I'm saying? And so this is what I call the purpose or cause. And this can drive a lot of investors to be like, you know what? Okay, it makes business sense first. And they don't care about the pride thing. They actually pride themselves in the purpose. Okay, I can see that this actually needs to change. Gorillas in the Mist, right? They were on the verge of extinction, silverback gorillas. Now they're just endangered. And that was a huge jump in our history of a movie actually having some sort of change in our world. And so, yeah, these are the three P's. That's profit, pride, and purpose.
You mentioned bucket list a minute ago, and I want to ask you a question that might segue into a bucket list story. So you mentioned 6 or 7 different ways to raise money. And I forget, it was either number 6 or number 7. And this is actually contrary to my philosophy, is you were talking about, even if you don't know somebody, you know somebody who knows somebody, or you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody else.
Yeah.
And 99% of my investors over 20 plus years, I can honestly say, I know. They're
Okay.
very close friends, family, or people in my network. Now, once in a while, there's someone outside of that. But you brought up a very interesting thing in this concept. You know somebody who knows someone, and you got to share this story real quick about the Canadian Jiffy Lube guy and the bucket list.
Yeah, 100%. So I don't know this guy personally, right? So this is a huge thing for you'll get to a point where your circle, like you said, they all have money. You just know them now because your circle's changed over the years, right? But when you're first going to trying to make these full features and, you've made shorts, you want to make a feature, why, my whole philosophy is why, go big, just try, do it properly, so that you get the most exposure and all this other stuff. And so this is where this comes into place. So where a lot of filmmakers don't actually know someone with a lot of money. And so that was my bread and butter. Is hey, I don't know anybody, but hey, but these people that I do know, I know you in a conversation earlier, you told me about this guy. So I know that you know somebody. Hey, why don't you get them to have a conversation with me, see if they'd be interested in investing in a film. I'll make it worth your while. And so, this example, this guy who owned a Jiffy Lube franchise, he owned the whole thing. So as I'm talking to my friend who knows him personally, who can just text him and call him, says, hey, he brings it up to me in a conversation. I know this guy. He said to me once on his bucket list, he'd throw $1 million at a movie without even thinking about it. Because it's something that he's always wanted to do, but he just didn't know any money because his reality is the auto business and oil business. So he's for so many years, 30 some odd years, or I don't know how long, that's where his brain was. And investments is always, real estate's always one of the first things. And of course his realm, which is oil and auto. So now that he's sold it, right now he can go, now I can do my bucket list. And so when my friend says, I know this guy, it's hey, let's get a conversation. Let's go fly and meet him. Right.
Great story. And it just goes to show you never know unless you ask.
Exactly.
And you kind of expanded that. You never know unless you ask your friends who they might know. So
exactly.
great tip. Thanks for sharing that.
Mhm.
I want to thank you very much for coming on, Jamie, but two things. Let us know the best way that our audience can connect with you, find out more about your seminars. But first, I would love for you to share statistics of what some of the problems are with people in the film business and what you're doing to help other people in their emotional and health and well-being states.
Yeah, 100%. So about 7 years ago, well, it was longer than that. I quit doing film corporately, like working for like shows like Smallville, Reaper, just working on a bunch of MOWs and stuff. I quit that full time to start raising my family because I have 4 kids now since I quit back in 2008. Doing it corporately, where I'm just working as a first AD, all that stuff, uh, and so from there, I watched all my friends, mainly divorce. Divorce was a huge thing. And I was watching them getting divorced, and the statistic that I came across, so there was a 98% divorce rate in the film industry. So it's not just like the
Wow.
celebrities. We all see the celebrities and their stories and stuff like that. No, but behind the scenes, the crew people, and then we had one guy, like I said, that went to 12 funerals in one summer in the one union, just one union. I can't remember which union, what it was, and 9 of them were suicide related.
Wow.
And so I saw that this pain. We had this glamour of Hollywood and glamour of the film industry, but then I saw this dark side of it, and I wanted to be a part of the change and part of help. I want to help it because I love the industry so much that I wanted to see it actually thrive. And so that's when I decided that, like, you know what, I'm going to be a life coach, and I want to try to help these people. And so I've been doing that for about 7 years now. Helping the people in the film business. And I've seen some of the darkest stuff and been a part of some stop suicides, having to trick people to meet me somewhere so that they can actually get help. And, just the craziest stories, stuff like that, getting their phone traced to see where they are. I'm serious, because they've said they're done, right? And it's like, okay, what are we supposed to do? This is a life. I don't care who you are. I've had people criticize me. Oh yeah, they're on drugs. It's their own decision. Da, da, da. That's not cool. The reason why they're on drugs is for a reason. And it wasn't because they just made a choice and said, you know what, I'm going to do this because I'm just, weak or whatever, right? No, it started in the heart. There's something happened in their heart first to connect them to make this decisions that leads down a rabbit trail that's going to harm their life and maybe lives around them. So I want to get to the heart of these people, and I've been doing it for 7 years, and it's been great. We have underground gatherings across Canada, in LA, for them to gather to help. It's just a community, and then we have programs to we call them on-set emissaries. They can go on. They're on movie sets, and they're actually there to help anyone on a movie set during the time, help them, mentally and emotionally, spiritually, physically, whatever they need. They're there to help them. So
That's very, very real, because it's a very unusual business where
yeah,
you sometimes work 16, 17-hour days. I mean,
yeah,
that's not every day, but
no,
certainly we have some long days like that. And
yeah.
sometimes you're living in a hotel room away from your family for 3-4 months. So it's a crazy business. So I applaud what you're doing. And just let's wrap out with the best way to connect with you.
Best way to connect with me, to be honest, is through Instagram. I'm probably the most busy on Instagram, and that's a great way to connect. The Art of Filmmaking is my Instagram, or Jamie D. Rauch. That's the best way to get a hold of me. And then I do have like I said, I have another webinar coming up June 15th, the same one.
Excellent. Well, Jamie, thank you so much. I really appreciate your words of wisdom. Tune in next week, or for more info, visit financeyourmovie.com. Thank you for listening. And remember, if you have a story to tell the world, never give up on your dream.